at red lights during the crazy times. Because why not, right? Well, what else are you going to do when you're trying to cross the street? Doesn't matter if it is crazy times or not. Just waiting and waiting and waiting. A bloody red light to go. Come on. What a waste. Waiting at a red light and never changed green and just gave the passing traffic. Yeah, there you go. Life during crazy times. Sometimes traffic lights aren't so great. Anyway. So what I wanted to talk to you about really is the kind of wackiness of life in a place of much tension, which I'm sure if you have experienced it, you're probably familiar with, but most people on this planet, fortunately, seem to not be. And I say fortunately because I wish this kind of thing upon no one, right? There's too many people who suffer in far worse conditions even than what I'm at, where I'm currently. There's people in, active battlefields, right? Or hostages, held in captivity, being tortured and abused, and all kinds of horrible things. But my point is, even day-to-day life, in a place that appears relatively normal on the surface, where you can just tell there's tension brimming right underneath it. It's so thick, you can cut it with a knife, as they say. The tension in the air. And you can literally feel it. You can see it in people's faces, you can see it in the number of people, on the street, where normally it's packed. And there's just like tons of people walking around. Right now it's basically empty. And people are not just walking around and having fun as they normally would at this time of year. In better times anyway. And that's why it's not at all surprising that there's a lot of tension and people are not necessarily comfortable. And yeah, it's definitely tense days. Okay, good to verify the location. Right. So, did you know that even during crazy times like this, you can use a Bitcoin ATM? Whoa, what? Yes. Some ATMs are not 24 hours a day because they're not exactly ATMs. They're like shops where you can go in and you can buy or sell, Bitcoin or any crypto that they happen to trade in. And basically what you do is you make the purchase online through an agent that you communicate with through WhatsApp. They're an agent of some company and you get their phone number from a website of the company. And then basically, you do the transaction, whether you're buying crypto or selling crypto. So if you're buying crypto, you obviously have to have either a credit card or some other way to pay them. They'll even send delivery, like people to pick up from you or to deliver to you. If you're ordering more than a few $100 worth or whatever. Up to, I think, a few $1,000s worth. And They'll just bring you whatever you need to do to conduct a transaction, or they'll come to you to take the payment that you need if you're buying, or they'll deliver to you either the QR code that you can bring to the store, and then they scan your QR code at the cashier and they hand you cash, or the delivery person can bring you cash, right? And for this privilege, they charge you, it's like whatever the network fee is, obviously, for the transaction, plus their conversion rate, which obviously is not the actual market rate. It's like market minus 0.5% or whatever, or plus 0.5%, depending on whether you're buying or selling. And then they take like a 2.5% fee for the service, which, when you come down to it, depends how you look at it, right? Say you have Bitcoin or whatever crypto in some wallet, and you want to cash it out, and you don't necessarily have an easy off ramp. Right? Not everybody has a bank account. Not everybody has a crypto wallet and their PayPal activated, right? So an ATM or a crypto cash service like an ATM can provide an alternative, and does provide an alternative, for people who just want to sell some crypto, for example, and get cash for it. And how do you do that? Well, one easy way to do that is, like I said, you have crypto in some wallet, and then you run the transaction of selling some of your crypto by sending it to some wallet of an agent belonging to this company, whatever company it happens to be, right? Whatever ATM teller system you're using. It could be that you're going to be talking to a human. It could be that you're just dealing with a bot. Right? It could be that you're just transacting with like a very basic AI, slash machine learning bot that just handles the whole process. Or it could be that none of the above. You just have to take your crypto in a wallet on your phone to the store, or on whatever device you have that you can bring to the store, where you can scan a QR code on the machine, transact, send your Bitcoin, and receive cash. Or if you want to buy, that you can buy with your credit card or your Apple Pay. For example, if you have if you have an Exodus wallet, then you can buy with Apple Pay from whatever vendor deals with that. And there are some Bitcoin machines that deal with Apple Pay, actually. So, like, the Apple Pay itself doesn't necessarily have the bridge directly to Bitcoin, but Apple Pay has a bridge through the Exodus wallet. I think it's the Exodus wallet, to let you buy or sell crypto through your wallet, and then to Apple Pay as the like ramp for your dollars or euros or whatever your fiat is. So you can actually make payments with crypto through Apple Pay. Right, they get converted first from crypto to some USD flavor, whether it's a stable coin or whatever else. And then it goes to Apple Pay, and then Apple Pay uses your balance to do the payment. But of course, this doesn't work everywhere, but it does work even outside the United States. It does work in a bunch of countries, not every country, but in a bunch of them. You can look it up on their list. But that's really small, because obviously far more people have access actually to Bitcoin than to Apple Pay, in the sense that, right, Bitcoin is still borderless and is still permissionless, and you don't need to have an Apple device or an Apple product to use Apple Pay. right? Like you do. In order to use Bitcoin, you can just have a Bitcoin wallet. So in that sense, it's more accessible. Are there more people on Earth who actually have an Apple device or a Bitcoin wallet? Well, there's 250 million people who, in theory, have some kind of a wallet, right? With some BTC. Right? There's about 500 million who have any particular kind of crypto wallet. Keep in mind, not every crypto wallet actually lets you hold Bitcoin, which is kind of remarkable and nuts. And you have to wonder to yourself, why in 2024 would you want to even have a wallet that doesn't let you hold Bitcoin and all of its various flavor things, ordinals and runes and all that stuff, right? Like, it's just, that's silly, right? All these wallets trying to split up the game. It's just really, if you think about it, a very, very poor development of the user experience from the engineering point of view and from the customer satisfaction point of view and all that other stuff. So from a marketing point of view too, like, why would you want to market a wallet in the crypto space that doesn't let you have Bitcoin and Ethereum and all the other top coins and all the top stable coins? Who would want to even make such a thing, right? It's just really weird. Like, here, use our wallet. You can use 25 of the top 26 coins. Oh, let me guess which one you don't allow. Bitcoin, right? Or Ethereum, right? Like, it's just so silly. And there are, to this day, people that use wallets that don't allow them to use one or the other of the top coins. It's just, lame, right? So, anyway, but my point is that Bitcoin ATMs, crypto ATMs, whatever you want to call them, come in various flavors, right? There's all kinds of different machines that do it. In a lot of places, they've kind of become less popular over time because people have figured out other cheaper ways to get their money out. But for some people, it's actually cheaper to use a Bitcoin ATM than to use any other solution that they might have access to, right? Like, it might actually be cheaper for some people, and we know that it is, to use a Bitcoin ATM instead of moving the money from a wallet to, let's say, PayPal, even, okay, if you could. And you can, obviously, if you have a verified wallet, but not if you don't. And then pay a conversion fee in there, and then pay another fee if you're sending to another wallet to transfer, or to another PayPal account to take it out of, or even just another fee if you're just taking it directly out of that account. All right, so you're paying anywhere from 1 to like 3 or 4 different fees to take out your money, which at the end of the day will add up to more than like 2.5% plus the network fee, right? So Bitcoin ATMs, even at a suboptimal market rate, plus a 2.5% service fee plus a network fee, still adds up to less than like a 4% fee. And if that's what you're paying on like a service like PayPal or any of those other similar services, it's still a better deal, right? And what's great about that is it's completely permissionless, right? Now, okay, the ATM might request some KYC information if you're taking over a certain amount, or just in general, or whatever, if you're a first-time customer, because you're, after all, walking into a shop usually, or to a location where there's a machine or there's a teller that's going to be dealing with you, and some transaction that's hundreds or potentially many thousands of dollars, maybe just a few $1,000 a day or whatever, but more than the average ATM withdrawal. And so they want some kind of a KYC, also because they're dealing with crypto and they don't want to have a headache if somebody comes to them later and says, hey, we're tracking down some stolen Bitcoin or who knows what. Now, that makes sense. Now, it's not going to make sense for everybody, especially if you need to keep your privacy or if you just don't have ID, right? And not everybody might have a driver's license or a passport or a national ID card or whatever, right? Depends on the location you're going to. But, most people probably, with certainly more than one standard deviation, right, have some kind of information like that. Maybe not quite 2 standard deviations, but at least one, somewhere between 1 and 2. It's more than likely most people have that kind of identification. So they can get the bell curve in general to be generally satisfied, the first standard deviation, above and below the mean, to have the ability to have these services. So that's not a bad start. And it's certainly more than the current state of affairs when you are looking at the alternatives, which are by no means as all-inclusive as Bitcoin, or even Ethereum and Solana and all these other things, where you do have some more measure of freedom. Still. Maybe not for long, but still. But in good news, Cardano was recently reported to still be in the hands of retail traders and retail investors. And something like 91% of all Cardano is still in the hands of retail holders and traders. And that's really good for decentralization. That's kind of the main purpose of crypto, right? Which is why a lot of people who hold Cardano are just happy to hold it and not sell it off, right? And, people complain, they're not doing anything on Cardano. They just have a very slow timeline because they believe that that's the way to do things. And, is it frustrating? Sure, in some sense it's frustrating. But does that mean that even if they got 10 projects off the ground, launched tomorrow, that the price action would be flying to the moon? No, it doesn't mean that at all, right? It doesn't mean that at all. And anybody thinking that that's what would happen doesn't understand how markets work, right? It could take years even after they launch products for the market to actually go to the moon, quote unquote. It's a really presumptive and premature view to think, all we got to do is get 1 or 2 soft releases out and then, we're good to go, right? Cardano will take over the world. That's not how it's going to work, right? It's a massive project, but it's not a massive project that's just going to flip one day and all of a sudden just be the massive project that everyone uses. No, it takes a long time for projects with that kind of a vision to take root and really take hold and change the habits of people. And it might not succeed. It might fail, right? But where it can succeed is in just remaining a cryptocurrency that remains in the hands of people. In that sense, it can succeed without all this other stuff. Right? That's why I keep saying, what's the reason Bitcoin is actually so great? Is it really because it's able to be developed to have other things like ordinals and runes and God knows what else will come, digital IDs and all this other stuff? No. Right? The reason Bitcoin is so great is because it does the thing that it's supposed to do, that it's always done. It's a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, right? That's all it has to be in terms of basic functionality. Now, the way that it does that happens to grant you a lot more freedoms, at least until it's completely in the hands of centralized powers, which increasingly it is. And I've clearly made the case that it's already no longer a decentralized coin, really, since most of it is in the hands of huge whales and banks and governments and financial institutions. They hold most of the coins. It's not really a people's coin. Those who have access to it are the few, the proud, the rare. Think about it. If you have any amount of Bitcoin on this planet in your own wallet, you're in a huge minority. Like huge, right? Or a tiny minority, if you want to call it that way. I want to say a huge minority. I mean, you're in a massively outsized minority. Outsized in terms of your financial power, and underwhelming in terms of the number of people that actually hold. Right? Say 250,000 people actually own Bitcoin of any amount, anywhere from 1 Satoshi to 100, a million Bitcoin, like Satoshi does. That's 50 million people out of 8 billion. Right? Think about that. How many times can you put 50 million into 8 billion? Well, 50 million into 100 million is 2. 100 million into a billion is 10. And a billion into 8 billion is 8. So, 2 times 10 times 8. That's right. Right? There's 160 more times people on Earth than there are people who actually have any Bitcoin. If it's 50 million. If it's 250 million people have some Bitcoin, we're talking still, 1/32, like less than 3% of the planet. Right? Because you got 250 million people, goes into a billion 4 times. 4 times 8 is 32. So like 1 in 32 people have some Bitcoin. That's not a lot of people, really. That's less than 3%. Or whatever. It's around 3.5%. Nothing. And again, some measure of Bitcoin could be they have 10,000 Satoshis in some wallet that they forgot to cash out or wouldn't cash out because of a network transaction or whatever. The people that actually have any amount of any significance, let's say, I don't know, at the current rates, let's say 1 million Satoshi, right? 0.01 Bitcoin, okay? Which is not a lot of Bitcoin, but 0.01 Bitcoin, okay? $600 worth, right? Which someday could be worth who knows what. Think about that. It's a far, far fewer number that own that number or more, believe it or not. I know it sounds surprising to those of us who've been in it forever, but that's the reality, right? We're seeing it now. And it's right now the case where the distribution is so thin that it's basically not a decentralized coin anymore. Yeah, sure. 250,000 people own some amount of Bitcoin. Great. But those 250,000 people own mostly a token amount. Right? Like really small. think about it, what that means is it doesn't even matter how much hash power the miners have. Because for now, yes, they're still mining, but they're mining less and less and less coin every 4 years. And in another 8 years, they won't even be mining 1 Bitcoin per block. Right now, they're only mining a few per block. So what it means is that the power is actually in the hands of those that hold it. And yes, there's still going to be lots of wonderful revenue flowing from running just transactions. But already most of the coin is distributed. Most of it, more than 90%, is distributed and is being held almost entirely by large banks. Which means it's really no different than the existing system we have today. The only difference is the aspects of it that still remain permissionless and uncensorable and all that stuff. But there will come a time when centralized authorities will have so much control over it with KYC and AML and additional measures, right? And limits on this and blocks on that. And, oh, here's a great on-ramp, but you're not invited. Or you don't pass this test, or you don't get verified for that check. And it's happening increasingly to people all over the place, not just in countries that were previously thought of as unbankable or unbanked or whatever. It's happening more and more to people, even in the States and in Western Europe, right? And in Japan and Korea. People are losing access to what were traditionally thought of as normative financial services because of bad credit, because they were sold credit, bad loans, because they were sold loans, bad whatever, bad financial scores, because they were sold bad financial products by the very companies that are ripping them off, holding them responsible for signing on the dotted line in order to get what they thought was what they needed to get by. And then when they can't hold up to it because the bank gave them a bad deal, then they're screwed, and the bank just keeps all their money and wrecks their credit score and makes it impossible for them to get on with their life, in a happy and thriving way. And this is happening to an ever-increasing number of people, like I said. And then you have people who are dealing with that, and on top of that, they're living in places where there are major conflicts. So their local fiat currency is becoming increasingly worth crap. And the crypto they hold is increasingly more important. Which is, again, why I think that cryptos that still are well distributed, like ADA, right, Cardano, are actually important. Because they, for now, allow you to transact without having big whales and governments and financial institutions controlling the on-ramps and the off-ramps and every step in between. More than these other gateways that are just already far worse, frankly. Now, does that mean that ADA isn't connected to the same centralized authorities that do put limitations on people's freedoms? No, they are, right? You can buy and sell ADA on places like Coinbase and other services that are increasingly not so welcoming, and that are increasingly creating havoc for people trying to conduct basic transactions, right? But at the same time, you can still transact with ADA in other ways. And thanks to things like crypto ATMs, you still have a generally freer experience with ADA than you do with even Bitcoin. It's not to say that I'm a ADA fanboy or something more than Bitcoin or anything, but look, love it or hate it, it is more decentralized than Bitcoin is, which means it is more permissionless at this point. Right? It is a decentralized cryptocurrency after all, right? Anyway, why am I telling you that? And why did I call the title of this video, Israel, Lebanon, conflict, tensions, and socialized medicine kind of sucks? Well, just to let you know, it's always the grass is always greener on the other side kind of thing. On the one hand, war is dumb, war sucks, war is the worst of human behavior, and yet we continue to do it, despite all the ridiculous nonsense it leads to, despite all the terrible awfulness it leads to. People still continue to do it, and I wish it would end peacefully. Right? I don't wish for any bloodshed. And I think my fellow brothers and sisters and human beings in most countries would tend to agree with that. Not in all, probably, but in most. But in the places where they don't, there's usually a problem with the ideology, and that comes from the management of that ideology and how they view the world and their power trips, their crazy views of how things ought to be. And violence is like par for the course. At the same time, you have people living through this nonsense. It could be in Ukraine, it could be in Israel, it could be anywhere. It could be in Gaza, it could be in Russia, it could be in Angola during, or Venezuela, or who knows what. It could be anywhere where there's ever been strife or conflict, and where there is today. There's a lot of places like that on Earth, right? South Sudan, Yemen, right? A lot of places that are struggling one way or the other with having peace, and having a thriving and growing economy. And it's not because the boomers used all the whatever. Yeah, the boomers borrowed against the future. That's true. But also, the boomers created vast amounts of wealth. The problem is they didn't distribute it properly, right? They're because of greed. But they still created more wealth for the country overall. And you could say, well, it's borrowed, it's not real. Yeah, I would agree. And I would on top of that say the fiat that was used is nonsense. And we all accept that that's the way that it works, because we all know that if we don't accept it, it's a house of cards ready to come down and set on fire. So when I hear even my fellow crypto people tiptoe through the crypto and wish for the day that the dollar flips with Bitcoin and Bitcoin becomes the world reserve currency, listen, I love Bitcoin in many ways. I love cryptocurrency. I love crypto technology. I love cryptography. I love all that stuff since decades. But to actually wish for a day when the American world reserve currency will be flipped and no longer be that is to be taking a seriously big gamble on the future of your own security and the security of your loved ones. I say that because if the dollar is not the world reserve currency, you have massive problems or potential problems, right? You say, well, who cares if we buy our oil in rubles or dollars? Who cares? I'll tell you who cares. Vladimir Putin cares, right? Xi cares. Kim cares. All the dictators care. Right? Khomeini cares. Why do they care? Because they want the dollar not to be the world reserve currency. They want to flip it because they want to have the power so that they can oppress the world. Service thing. Oh, great, wonderful. You have an on-call 24-hour doctor thing. That sounds great. Amazing. Wow, it must be amazing. Right. Except when you call and you ask for something urgent and you go somewhere for it, far away, and they won't give you what you need or sell you what you need, and you call the doctor to get the thing sorted, and he tells you, no, sir, I can't help you, talk to your doctor. And you tell the doctor, but you're the doctor. And he says, yes, but I'm not your personal family doctor. So, well, then why do they tell me to talk to you? To which his answer is, I don't know. But talk to your doctor. So socialized medicine sounds great, but it kind of sucks. Like, don't get so into the illusion that just because a country offers its citizens socialized medicine, that the vast overwhelming majority of all the problems with medicine, even on a basic level, are solved, because they're not, right? A lot of medicines are not always available. So, like, you could need medicine to save your life, right? That could literally, without it, you might die at any given moment. Sorry, we don't have that now. Oh, okay, when do you have it? I don't know. Like, are we talking hours, days? Oh, it could be weeks or months. Might even be a few years. Ridiculous things like that. Like, why is it? It might be a few years. And who else can I buy from? Oh, you can't. What do you mean I can't? Well, nobody else sells it in this country. What? Okay, how else can I get it? You can't. Why not? It's illegal to import without a license. Well, obviously. Can I have a friend or relative bring me some from outside? No, only small personal amounts for that person. They can't bring you yours. And you can't order it by mail. And if you do and they catch it, it's a finable offense or whatever. Maybe worse, who knows? So socialized medicine is very often, as great as it is for many people, for many things, it's also complete crap when it comes to people who have anything like chronic issues to deal with or serious issues to deal with that are not covered by the general, what they call a health basket or health service or whatever you want to call it. Okay? If it's not subsidized, basically you're screwed. And the amount of things that are not subsidized keeps growing every year because the whole purpose of these organizations is to try to cover as many people as possible. And the only way they can do that is by covering less and less things and just cover more and more generic stuff that pretty much nobody actually needs help with, or very few people. But the serious stuff that people really need help with, they cover that less and less. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. And I wish everybody a peaceful and happy life. And may we all know no more sorrow. As I say that for people I know who are no longer with us, good souls I knew who are no longer with us, and others who are still suffering in captivity or in battle or both or whatever. May we all have peace in our life, a real good, genuine peace, and thrive and be good to each other. I don't know what challenge you have for me, but all right. Talk to you later. Bye. Peace.